Good evening, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here at my alma mater and to have my family here with me, my wife, Sarah, my daughters, Abigail and Sophia. Sophia drove all the way from East Lansing up at MSU to be here, so I appreciate that she made the drive. I grew up a little over 1 mile from here. Like so many families in Macomb County, my parents were from the east side of Detroit. They moved from the city in 1971 when I was a year old. They moved to a brand new development of 1,000 square foot brick ranches near 14 Mile Road in Gratiot. Soon after, my grandmother told my father there was no way he could move her daughter all the way out to Clinton Township from the city of Detroit. So for me, being in this building, among these neighborhoods, in this auditorium is like coming home. These were my formative years, and I was raised to believe that you never forget where you come from. Earlier in the year, I was asked about delivering the Clinton Township State of the Township as a fundraiser for the Macomb County Chamber, as has had always been done in the past. I believe that no one should have to pay to hear their supervisor provide an update on what is happening in their community. So I agreed to do the fundraiser, but first I wanted to deliver it to my community, and I knew where I wanted it to be delivered. Right here, where I got my start. It's surreal for me because I was the shy, stuttering kid who was pulled out of class for speech therapy. So if you were to ask me then if I'd ever be here on a stage talking about what's going on in our community, I would be pretty surprised. And I'm sure there's a few retired teachers that would be just as surprised. But in my senior year of high school, I attended a student summit organized by Congressman David Bonnier and his office, and we explored the idea of putting my interest in public service to work. All of this led to working as a legislative aide in the state Senate for Ken DeBozart, serving this community in the state legislature, on the county board of commissioners, including serving as chair of the board of commissioners prior to having a county executive. And that was back in 2009 and 10, in the wake of an economic crisis when revenue was literally falling through the floor. So the way that I know I did that job correctly was everybody was angry, which means we spread the pain and everybody shouldered a part of the burden, and we navigated our way out of that crisis. And so what that provided me, I think, in preparation to be the supervisor, is a wide-angle lens. My service here in the township was infused by growing up here, being a part of this school, this community, and serving the residents of Clinton Township in those other positions. These experiences taught me that we cannot be myopic in the way we serve and the way we see ourselves. Our town is an integrated part of Macomb County, the Detroit metropolitan region, and the state of Michigan. That interconnectedness is both a strength and, in some cases, a tremendous challenge. Too often, we in Macomb County turn our focus inward, and we fail to recognize that our challenges are interconnected, and so too must be the solutions. Having served this community at the state, county, and local level, I believe it is important to apply a wide-angle lens on the challenges we face. Knowing the interconnectedness of these levels of government has taught me the decisions made elsewhere impact us here, and that communities have life cycles, and we need to recognize where we are in our community's life cycle. To ask the question, where are we now, where do we want to be, and what do we need to do to get there? And that we all want to be proud of the place we call home, but it's also necessary to be honest with ourselves if we really want to protect it and make it better. And that there is a role for each and every one of us to play. So through a series of aerial views and deep dives to get a closer look, I'm hoping to bring these challenges to all of our attention and zoom in on what we are doing and can do to confront them. So here's a 30,000 feet view. In most metropolitan areas, growth has always meant up. In the Detroit metropolitan area, growth has always meant out. As the home of the auto industry, the plants chased cheaper land to build on, and the population followed. From the urban core of Detroit, we grew as concentric rings, and we followed the major trunk lines of Jefferson, Gratiot, Woodward, Grand River, Michigan Avenue, and Fort Street. Here are the stats. In 1950, Detroit's population peaked at 1.8 million people. Then they lost 7% a year for the next 20 years. From 1970 to 2000, Macomb County grew 25.9%. By 1995, the urban area of the region quadrupled in size, with most of that growth taking place beyond the limits of the city of Detroit. So it was not more people, and it was not more taxpayers. Roughly the same number of people spread out over a wider and wider area. If we dive a little deeper, we see that there is a financial impact to spreading the population out further and further over a larger area. Tax base follows growth, and the receiving communities have a steady stream of new income flooding in as people and businesses turn farm fields into subdivisions until that growth stops. The older communities have older and more costly infrastructure to maintain. People often chase new and bigger, and especially if they have the capacity to do so. Businesses then often chase those with more disposable incomes. So older communities pay twice. We pay to repair the aging infrastructure, and we pay to subsidize the new infrastructure. We are paying to replace older water lines and sewer lines. We're paying to fix the aging roads. We're paying to upgrade schools and libraries and public utilities. But we are also paying to subsidize the cost of building new water and sewer infrastructure and expand roads and build new schools and libraries and public utilities. These costs are reflected in our tax millages and when we register our car and in our monthly electric bills and gas bills and Wi-Fi bills. So an overview of Clinton Township in this context: not all communities are built the same and developed at the same time. Clinton Township is currently transitioning from being an outer ring suburb to an inner ring suburb. By population, Clinton Township is the largest township in Michigan. We are the 7th largest municipality in Michigan, but in Macomb County, we're the 3rd largest. By housing stock, we're 95% developed. Our older neighborhoods are 75 years old. Our newer neighborhoods are 25 to 35 years old. We have multiple unit condo developments and apartments at a much higher rate. By land area, Clinton Township is 28 square miles versus a normal township of 36 square miles. We have all 3 branches of the Clinton River meeting in Clinton Township as it makes its way to Lake St. Clair, contributing to floodplain and road maintenance issues. So Clinton Township's development occurred in a post-industrial era, creating a tax base comprised of mostly residential and commercial corridors. I've met and talked with a number of real estate agents. They all agree, if you want to look at the health of a community, you can look at 3 key indicators: taxes, schools, and roads. So we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into those 3 issues. First, taxes. You may recognize this. This is a insert that goes into your summer tax bill. And what it shows is how $1 of your annual taxes are divided up and who it goes to. Here's the second page of that slide. So that first chart that you see is your summer tax bill on the left. That is more than half of the tax bill, but it's not just a breakdown, it is a breakdown of the different taxing authorities that are funded. So we have the schools, the county millage rate, the community college, the Macomb Intermediate School District, things like that. The township doesn't keep 1 penny of these dollars. Mike's office distributes 100% of these dollars to these different taxing authorities. The township's money comes in on the next chart, the winter bill, the smaller of the 2. Red is the fire department millage. Blue is the township's police department. The yellow sliver is the township's general operating millage. And it brings in less than $3.1 million. That means that everything we do in the township that is not police and fire and water and sewer is done with that yellow sliver. Sales taxes that go to the state has a component called revenue sharing, which provides dollars to local communities. That equates to about $11.5 million of the township's general fund. So we can isolate just what it takes to fund a municipality by taking out the schools, the community college, the MISD, the metro parks, the smart millage, the zoo, the DIA, all of that. We are at 14.3 mils. And our neighbor to the west, Sterling Heights, is at 17.5. But they have a road millage and a parks and recreation millage. And if you take those out, they're a little less than us at 13.1. But everything to the south of us is dramatically more. And everything to the north of us is dramatically less. Growth matters. And where communities are in their life cycle matters. Well, by population, Clinton Township is the largest township in the state, but we are the third largest community in Macomb. But unlike the two that are larger than us, Warren and Sterling Heights, we do not have a strong industrial tax base. Sterling Heights' industrial tax base is double ours, and Warren's is triple. So more people means more service. More services means more cost. Industrial property means money coming in that does not require a lot of services. That's the tax situation that we're in. Our residents are the ones paying the freight. Let's turn our attention to schools, because that's another huge consideration and one of the most important things for our community. Quality schools are an essential part, and they are all working hard to serve students and families. This is the district that provided me a great foundation, teaching me that the world and the community we will live in will not be homogeneous, but a blend of people from different races, cultures, and socioeconomic status and abilities. Their job as schools is to inspire learning and create opportunities for all, in spite of sometimes vast differences. Since we just got done talking about the municipal tax rates, let's look at the differences in school funding. Every homeowner with a homestead exemption pays a 6 mil education tax. But we also pay a debt millage based upon the school district's bonded indebtedness. Fraser and L'Anse Creuse levy a 7 mils debt millage. Chippewa Valley, a little higher, 8.6. That begs the question, why is it higher? Chippewa extends up into Macomb Township, was the fastest growing community in terms of residential home starts in the country in the 90s. They couldn't build schools fast enough in Macomb Township. In fact, they built the biggest high school in the state of Michigan, Dakota, which, by the way, still has 2-lane roads around it. These are the buildings of all the Chippewa Valley schools. You'll see the chart on the left are the schools that are Clinton Township. 2 of them built in the 50s, 2 in the 60s, 5 in the 70s, and 1 in the late 80s, and 1 in the mid-90s. On the other side, the Chippewa schools built in Macomb Township. 1 in the 60s, 8 of them in the 80s, 2 in the 90s, and 5 after the year 2000. That's reflected in a higher debt millage. But what's tougher than growth? Declining enrollment. Mount Clemens is at 11.8, and this district here is at 13. The people who live in the oldest parts of the community pay the highest school debt on their tax bills. This is not due to the local government. It's based on the amount of debt the school has, from needing to build out or keep pace with technology, or they don't have enough students to spread the cost of all of the programs they are required to provide. The fact is, schools that have declining enrollment face significantly greater challenges. While the state is thinking in terms of providing the best education possible to every student, by providing a foundation allowance that is relatively equal, the amount that we all pay varies dramatically. Residents deserve a fairer tax rate, and all students deserve an education that prepares them for a more technologically diverse economy, whether they're planning to learn a trade or plan to go to college to study finance or engineering. This is an issue that can't be solved by the township but it is no doubt a challenge for many areas of our community. We're going to turn our attention to roads now. In 2019, as part of a strategic planning initiative, consultants were hired and groups of business owners, active residents, and township officials were pulled together to identify the needs of our community. The condition of Clinton Township roads ranked as the #1 issue. Following that study, I was asked to chair a committee to determine how we could address this issue. Our Establishing Quality Roads Committee met for more than a year, and we brought in experts from all of the agencies and interest groups related to roads. The goal was to map road funding, determine who was making the decisions, and what criteria those funding decisions were based on. One of the best observations came from former county commissioner and now trustee Julie Matuzik, who said, "Did you notice that almost all of the experts, while we reviewed our findings, said, 'I didn't know that'?" Just like private industry, these experts all know their piece of the overall system, but not many know how the whole overall pieces fit together to create the whole system. So here is our road funding map. This is the flow of how road dollars are routed from the source, from you paying your gas taxes and car registrations, down to actually funding a road. While this looks quite involved, it's actually far more complicated than what is reflected here. This is the jurisdiction of roads. All public roads in townships under state law and are under the jurisdiction of the county road agencies. In our case, the Macomb County Department of Roads. We pay for roads through our car registrations and our gas taxes. These dollars then go to Lansing and are distributed via a formula. That distribution formula is called Public Act 51 of 1951. Both this jurisdictional issue and the flow of the dollars from the state is dictated by a 75-year-old law called Public Act 51 of 1951. And so I like to call this slide Fun with 51. In addition to being very, very old funding formula, this is what was going on in 1951 when this formula was built. The #1 selling car in the US was the Studebaker Starlight Coupe. The US only had 48 states. The interstate highway system didn't exist and wouldn't until 1956. And the Mackinac Bridge connecting the two peninsulas wasn't even completed until 1957. And here's my favorite stat. In 1951, 35% of Americans lacked complete indoor plumbing in their homes. Here's a bigger problem with Public Act 51, and it's the fact that it funds roads based upon their length, not their width. A linear mile of road is funded at the same weight regardless of the number of lanes. You know, when you drive up north and you're on those beautiful, pristine 2-lane roads, and the 5-lane roads in our community are deteriorating and chock full of patched potholes, know that it is because we receive the same amount of money for those 5-lane roads as our rural counties receive for their 2-lane roads. When the county says they do not have enough road dollars from the state, believe them, this formula is one of the major contributors. Our dollars are being distributed to the far reaches and rural communities throughout Michigan. Another problem with Public Act 51 is that the second biggest source of funds is the gas tax. But gas is taxed on the gallon, not the cost of a gallon. So as a result, it is subject to the law of diminishing returns. As cars become more fuel efficient and electrification of the auto industry, we will sell less gas and bring in less road dollars. Next problem, as we talked about, townships don't receive any of their own road dollars, but cities do. And both the cities and the townships have to come up with, to fix their main roads, a 50 to 60% match. Cities receive their own road dollars and can use them as their 50% match requirement on their main roads, or they can use them to fix some of their subdivision streets. Townships either have to pass a road millage or they have to put that money in from their general fund. Roads are expensive. So here are two of the most common projects. These are figures from the County Department of Roads. As stated, the township doesn't receive those road funds directly. We submit for projects to the county. North of us, townships want to turn 2-lane roads into 5-lane roads. That costs $9 million per mile to turn a 2-lane road into a 5-lane road. In our community, we need what they call mill and fills, which means grind down a 5-lane road, repair some of that substructure, and do an overlay. And the cost of that project is $3.5 million per mile. So a mile here and a mile there are not the same in terms of cost. Remember that all public roads, including these subdivision streets, are under the jurisdiction of the county, but the county isn't bringing in enough dollars to care for all of those roads. So the Macomb County Department of Roads has a small amount of money for subdivision streets, but it's for all the townships. So if you want a project, you or your residents in the form of a SAD must pick up the other 50%. This is where residents work with the township to sign a petition and agree to pay $15,000 to $20,000 per household to see their roads fixed. That cost is far too expensive, which is why all of our SAD petitions pulled in the last 4 years have failed to gain enough signatures to even send it to the County Department of Roads to go out for bid. That's created this situation. This is a rating of all of the subdivision streets from 2008 to 2018 to 2023. And you can see the increase in the red indicating poor to failed subdivision streets. 203 miles of subdivision roads throughout Clinton Township. Currently, 121 of them are currently ranked poor to failed throughout Clinton Township. That's daunting. That's a huge figure, and it's a huge cost. But all is not lost, because I think we've made significant progress with our Establishing Quality Roads Committee. Here's a chart of the main roads in Clinton Township from 2021 to the end of 24. 100 miles of main roads. In 21, 42 of those 100 miles were ranked poor to failed. We are now down to 11 miles. By figuring out how the system works, we were able to compete better for the limited dollars that are available. Clinton Township was the recipient of about $14.2 million from the previous administration in the form of American Rescue Plan dollars. Now, I've heard many people refer to these dollars as waste, fraud, and abuse. I call them not nearly enough, and vital infrastructure funding that is long overdue. Now, these dollars are disaggregated into a separate fund, and the criteria for spending them is only when we can leverage them for more and greater investment in our community. Spending these dollars on roads is not only a necessity, it's an investment in critical infrastructure, but also an area where we can pull these dollars to work, bringing in an even larger investment of public money into the township. We've also used these funds as matching dollars for recreation grants and improving our parks and some of the other things. But some of our roads are what they call federal aid eligible as well. We want to get as many of our roads as possible into position for this federal funding, because federal projects are 80% paid for by the feds, 10% by the County Department of Roads, and 10% by the local community. So if you've driven on Kelly Road between 14 and 15 Mile Road, know that your township's general fund only had to pay a 5% share, because we took the extra step of partnering up with Fraser to cover the other half. 14 Mile Road is currently under construction, and we are partnered with Roseville to again split that cost and reduce our share down to 5%. One of the other outcomes of the Establishing Quality Roads Committee is the establishment of a scoring matrix, a process based upon the condition of the road, the traffic count, the number of crashes that have occurred, where our strategic amenities are, so we know people are trying to get to them. So now when the county calls and says we've got a call for projects, we no longer make arbitrary decisions. There's not a group of people getting together to say, hey, we've got a lot of calls on this or that road. It's a process that we go through, and we can provide those answers as quickly as possible. But here's the most important thing that came out of EQR, and that is we developed a process to educate and engage the public. So along with a presentation and videos explaining all of these factors that are on our website, all of this road funding, all of the problems with the system, the broken system that we have, we put a letter on our website. It was designed to engage the public in this fight. And to date, 539 people have gone to the letter, added their comments, and with a few clicks, sent these letters to their state legislators asking them to prioritize local road funding. It worked. The county heard you and us and created a new SPP program, which is a subdivision preservation program, where instead of a full reconstruct, instead of a full 50% match, SPP is 25% paid for by the township and 75% by the Macomb County Department of Roads. These are not going to last as long as a full reconstruct, but they have been a huge benefit to our community. In the Ingleside Farm subdivision, from Groesbeck and Gratiot and just north of 16 Mile Road up to the hospital, all of the ingress and egress portions of these roads were in horrendous shape. Here's how they look now. Your state legislators also heard you. We began 2005 with the governor and the legislative leaders talking about $3 billion specifically to address local roads throughout the state, which means subdivision streets. They agreed on the amount, but they didn't agree on how to fund it. Your letter said, essentially, don't let this issue get bogged down in a partisan quagmire. On October 3rd, the state legislature adopted a new state budget that will provide $1.8 billion statewide, and about $30 million more dollars will come to Macomb County this year for the Macomb County Department of Roads to fund local road projects. As soon, we will be meeting with the county to determine what that means for Clinton Township and how can we put these dollars to work. The real question is, can we develop a way to fix your subdivision street without dollars coming from your pocket? Sadly, I think the answer is probably not likely, but I do believe that by working with the county, we can significantly lower the cost assessed to residents, and I believe that your letters help drive this process. So Mark Hackel will tell you that there's not a road he can't fix if he has the funding. We thank him and his administration for fighting for these dollars as well. We thank our legislators for responding to the voices of the citizens who contacted them. These things make a difference, and together we can all make a difference. Your letters, your engagement, your willingness to advocate for your community was a part in making progress happen, not just being negative about what happens in Clinton Township. Police and fire departments are on the front lines of making sure that our community is safe. Police and fire services are our biggest departments and are out there interacting with the people of our community. They are highly trained professionals who, like elected officials, they swear an oath to the Constitution and how to defend and protect our citizens. Very intense, high pressure, and sometimes dangerous situations. They are also in high and forever increasing demand. And quite frankly, it is getting harder and harder to find people with the qualifications to work in these essential public service jobs, especially in the fire department, who need both firefighter and paramedic certifications. This past August, our Clinton Township Police Department millage came up for renewal. There was a huge social media misinformation campaign claiming that this renewal was actually an increase. The millage, however, was overwhelmingly approved by the Clinton Township voters, demonstrating that the work of our first responders is a service that our community values. However, we know that pouring more money into a problem is not always going to solve every issue. Sometimes it's about making changes, training, implementing best practices, and ensuring high standards of professionalism. That is what this sticker on our patrol car means. To become an accredited police department, there are 72 different standards, each with 5 to 8 different proofs under each of those standards. This was a lot of work, so shout out to our former police chief, Dina Karinji, our current police chief who ran point on this project, Preston Sisala, and all of our officers who are now implementing best practices and receiving all of the training and reviewing all of the incidents to make sure they're serving our community in the way that is the best and highest standards that are available. Often our first responders have to confront difficult situations. When our officers and our firefighters are out there, they're facing a lot of difficult situations, issues that literally can't be solved in a single visit. They're time-consuming, they're complicated, they often lead to repeat calls for service. Issues like substance abuse, mental health challenges, domestic violence, economic instability, housing insecurity, and a host of others. Through a grant secured by Senator Gary Peters, we will soon have a trained social worker working directly with our police department. By partnering with CARE of Southeast Michigan, who designed and implemented a program, we now have Dawn Davison Cooper, who just signed on to serve in this vital role. We now have someone who can work with our officers, do the follow-up, make the necessary referrals to get people access to the programs and the help they need, and can hopefully avoid further incidences that require a police response. One of the things I want to talk about is the opioid, because there's been, it's not been a widely reported issue, but the nation was thrust into an opioid crisis. And that crisis was based upon the drug companies wanting to make billions of dollars at the expense of our community by flooding the market with painkillers that couldn't legitimately or responsibly be used. The result? Addiction and death for far too many Americans. Those deaths, as seen in this slide, grew exponentially. In a recent year, 238 Macomb County residents died from drug overdoses. Many more suffered the consequences of addiction and all that it entails. Opioid use is the primary driver for all of that suffering and all of the public money and all of the societal consequences. Clinton Township is home to 2 hospitals. We have at least 8 treatment facilities. That means that people from all over the county come to Clinton Township to seek treatment. In a recent year, only 15% of Henry Ford overdose patients were actually from Clinton Township. So you can imagine that's a huge burden on our police, our fire, and our EMS. On average, Clinton Township PD responds to 400 to 500 drug-related incidences per year. Our medical services teams administer Narcan 100 to 200 times per year, depending. The opioid crisis not only harms the health of our residents, it drains our public resources. So that is why we joined forces with towns across Michigan and across the country to hold rogue pharmaceutical manufacturers, the distributors, and the retailers accountable for the harm that they were sending throughout our community. This was a complicated but comprehensive lawsuit. It was based on settlements reached. So far, Clinton Township expects to receive $5.5 million over the next 15 years. $2.2 million of those dollars has already been received. And to date, we've committed $1.6 million over the next 3 years. Treatment, education, and prevention were the focus. So thanks to our committee of trustees and Deputy Supervisor Dan O'Leary that ran point on this, they created some guiding principles for the distribution of these dollars. Be impactful, be local, and team up. There are groups that are already doing great things and doing this work effectively. So help to fund them. So evaluate their proposals, fund those that can demonstrate success. FAN, Face Addiction Now, CARE of Southeast Michigan. The 41B District Court and our own police and fire departments receive grant funding to enhance their existing programs like family and peer coaching, testing, coalition building, police school liaison officers, and detection equipment. More allocations will be awarded as these funds become available. So responding to all of these things, we need more money coming in. And we know that while Clinton Township runs a tight ship, cutting our way to prosperity has never been the standalone model for success. The real drivers of economic growth are innovation and investment. Because of where we are in our community life cycle, we know that for us, economic development is really about redevelopment. We are 95% developed. We lack a thriving industrial tax base, relying on our residents and our struggling commercial districts to fund the things that we need to do. The fallout from Amazon and online shopping are vacant strip malls along our commercial corridors. Now I have just as many packages hitting my porch as the rest of the population, right, Sarah? No. But the reality is convenience versus Partridge Creek. However, some of us, odd-sized, more particular types, need to touch and feel and try on our next pair of pants before we want to purchase them. So Partridge Creek came up with some really good answers as to how they dealt with the struggling commercial districts. No doubt the market is changing, and we aren't entirely sure what comes next. But Partridge Creek does the research on this, and they decided to bring in the biggest powerhouse gym on the planet, set to open in a few weeks. Maybe they know that what people are looking for are experiences as they plot the next development to fill the next vacant pod, the old Nordstrom's facility that's been empty far too long. Our former Parks and Rec director said something quite a few years ago that stuck with me. People are looking for experiences that are different from the routine. The two young men in their 20s and 30s, I think, had that same mindset when they turned a Kmart on Garfield and Canal Road into an indoor pickleball facility. I mean, think about it. Sat vacant for 10 years. Now it's a thriving business, and these guys are doing really well. So as developers are coming my way, my message to them has been, we do not need more car washes, gas stations, used car lots, or self-storage facilities. We want you to think bigger. I know that investors are skittish in the economy, but taking the leap and being innovative is what we're calling on them to do. If we don't demand more, we have to accept what they give us. And while the rent checks may flow for a while, it's temporary. So our plan is to work with the County Planning Economic Development team, put whatever funds we can into marketing our community and our remaining vacant commercial parcels and our corridors, and develop plans around them. Clinton Township has always supported our new businesses and worked with the chambers to film the ribbon cuttings and promote them on cable and YouTube and social media. But we now have most of our recent ribbon cuttings on our website. There's also a page to promote our current and expanding businesses. So aspiring entrepreneurs now have a place to go and hopefully find a little bit more inspiration for their initiatives. But it's not just promotion where we want to make an impact. Under the leadership of our planning director, Bruce Thompson, we've shortened the timeline from months down to weeks so that expansions can happen quicker and more productively. We also need to market our corridors. Moving from east to west, we have Harper, Groesbeck, Gratiot, Garfield, and Hayes. So there's this G and H theme working, and I don't know how we create an economic development theme around that, but I am open to suggestions. But they all have a unique feel, and we want to figure out ways to expand and market those corridors better. As we discuss this, let's use the Gratiot DDA as an example. A DDA is otherwise known as a Downtown Development Authority, where we appoint a board. They're comprised of local business owners to use tax increment financing to make improvements that will uplift the corridor. Well, it's been around a long time. I don't believe the township has given those efforts the attention and tools they need to make as big of an impact as they want to. So because of that, we've seen them struggle, and we've left them feeling overlooked. We've now invited and seen the dealerships come back, the median landscaping looking better, and more communication with the Gratiot Cruise Committee. The Gratiot DDA was recently awarded a SEMCOG planning grant, and we're out for bid right now to develop a corridor improvement plan to make Gratiot safer, better lit, more walkable, more pedestrian friendly, and where businesses along it are more connected to the neighborhoods that feed them and the public transit that successfully operates on it. Right now it's little steps, like partnering with the Beautification and Conservation Committee, who helped coordinate a flower pot program for local businesses and a cleanup that recruited volunteers to help pick up the litter and the trash along Gratiot just prior to the Gratiot Cruise. These efforts lead to bigger ones, like getting the word out on the facade improvement plan, where the DDA can provide matching funds to businesses to improve their storefronts. What we do here, we think, can be a model for other corridors, but it will take the active involvement of the businesses that line them, and in many cases, the absentee owners who collect the checks for the rent from the properties there while enjoying their amenity-rich communities in the higher taxed West Side. So, since taking this job, there's not a week that's gone by where I have not received calls and emails about businesses, strip malls, homes in neighborhoods that are not maintaining their property. I now have a weekly meeting set up with the building department director just to keep up with all of these service requests and to make sure that we're not letting anything slip through the cracks on my end or theirs. But the number of site visits our inspectors make versus the number of staff we have, they are busy all the time. So we talked about figuring out how we can change our enforcement process. Our current process includes warnings, issuing violations, and when voluntary compliance doesn't work, we issue misdemeanor tickets that are sent to the district court as criminal violations. As you can imagine, this is a drawn-out process that takes far too long, often 6 to 9 months. We know that judges are hard-pressed to hand down a criminal conviction to a struggling business or homeowner. In the case where they do, warrants wind up getting issued, and the issue goes unaddressed until someone happens to be in contact with law enforcement on an unrelated incident. So in the meantime, neighbors, nearby business owners in our community are left to tolerate blight while being told that this is a lengthy and difficult process. So we recently worked with our building department, our township attorneys, the district court, and the board of trustees to change our ordinances from criminal misdemeanors to civil infractions that carry the threat of a monetary fine, but also injunctive relief. So our ordinance enforcement officers will still work with our residents and our businesses to issue warnings and provide flexibility, especially when financial resources are lacking. But that relief must come with real plans to address the issue and real progress on cleanup and compliance. When there's a conscious choice made to ignore the blight or flaunt the rules or ignore them, tickets will be issued, escalating fines will be imposed, and the court will have the authority to order compliance, or they'll be able to direct the township to address the issue at the owner's expense. We believe this process will lead to better compliance, more efficient enforcement, and hopefully an overall reduction of blighted properties. Fighting for our residents and holding those that work for us accountable is our goal in working with Priority Waste, the township's waste hauler. While pickups have been getting better and more consistent, our contract allows us to impose penalties against our waste hauler for missed pickups. So from April to August, there were far too many missed pickups throughout our community and many of those communities all around us. We will negotiate, we will be fair in the face of evidence that we've overassessed the penalty provisions of our contract, but we will stand up for our residents and ensure that they receive the services that they pay for and have a right to expect. Another way that we stood up for our residents is when powerful interests tried to run roughshod over them. Such was the case when ITC, the main electricity transmission company, attempted to place high-powered transmission lines less than 50 feet from the balconies of condo owners along 19 Mile Road, devaluing their property and the economic development potential of a major thoroughfare in our community. We are proud to have Henry Ford Macomb Hospital in our community. They serve our health needs. They are our largest employer. They make a huge investment in our community with the building of their new North Tower. Meeting their power needs in the new tower is important to them. It's important to us and our entire region. But the day after the election, I met with all the principals here on this issue, most notably ITC, who outlined the reasons why they were opting to run these lines down 19 Mile Road in spite of the township's objections, and our support of the alternative route down Delcoma Drive. We were told that state environmental regulators would refuse to allow the Delcoma route because property owned by Macomb Community College contained wetlands. We were told that it would interfere with the hospital helicopter operations. We were told because of the existing drain in the area that runs along Delcoma, the project would require them to encroach too far onto the college campus. They went so far as to present us a study that said that the 19 Mile Road route had 0 residential impact because there weren't single families along the route. Well, we met with Eagle, who told us this can absolutely be done, and we would take into consideration the residential impact on those condo owners. We met with the Public Works Commissioner, who then met with ITC and told them that co-locating the power lines in the drain easement was something she was willing to work with them on to avoid taking too much college property. We then hired a helicopter company that basically said the power lines were not as big of an impediment to helicopter operations as the helipad's existing proximity to the building and the lights in the parking lot. So all of our findings contradicted all of the claims made by ITC. The more we uncovered, the more we were left wondering what was really going on. So under a Freedom of Information Act request submitted to Kim Meltzer, we discovered that the college, whose front face is, let's face it, Hall Road in Garfield, and the Delcoma route is the back route to the college property, that they oppose this based upon aesthetics and possible but not planned future growth. After our efforts to lobby the college board to work cooperatively with us to find a more amenable solution, and after the residents of Westchester Village Condo Association voted down the cash offer that was made to them by ITC, the township board stood firm and voted unanimously to reject the 19 Mile Road route. And we stand ready to defend that position on behalf of our residents. We firmly believe that the Delcoma route is viable, it's less intrusive, will not inhibit the future growth of the college or the township, and does not place high transmission lines 50 feet from where any resident lays their head at night. I began this talk by asserting that the township is facing increased challenges and its interconnectedness and interdependent on the communities around us, the county government and the state of Michigan, and we must work together to confront them. Similar to the way that our fire department provides mutual aid to the communities around us when needed, certain challenges are beyond the resources of any community on their own. Nowhere is that more omnipresent than in the case of natural disasters. While Clinton Township is one of the few communities that had their own emergency manager, we knew that we would still have to rely on the county, the state, and the federal government in the case of a natural disaster. So when faced with a decision on how to address our emergency preparedness going forward, I was grateful that the county partnered up with us and their emergency management team stepped up, and we were able to put together a contract with them. In meeting with Brandon Lewis, the county's emergency management director, and his team, it became apparent that these are people who possess the training, expertise, and in fact, live and breathe emergency management preparedness all day, every day. So one of the challenges of leadership is recognizing what you know and what you don't know, then identifying the people and the resources that can help you navigate difficult situations. With the help of the Clinton Township Police Department and the Fire Department, we found an actual police officer that had all of the requisite training to become our liaison, backed up by our fire chief to serve as the second liaison. This move not only saves the township money, but it also is a partnership that will expand our resources and tactical response. So we can pray that these aren't going to be necessary, but know that the right people are available to help when and if they are. Next, figuring out ways that we can save money in the township. So like much of Macomb County and even the state of Michigan, we have a rising population of seniors. Clinton Township has a large percentage of condos, multifamily apartments, senior independent and assisted living, along with the modest homes where people remained after raising their families and want to age in place. To serve our senior population, we have a great senior center. Offers great programs, great activities. Those that are fortunate enough to utilize it report a strong sense of community and connectedness. And we now know so much more, and we are able to acknowledge more the destructive health impacts of feeling isolated as we age. So when we can provide a sense of community and connectedness for those seniors, that is a phenomenal thing for our community. But we're also known for a thriving Parks and Recreation department. We organize events and activities. These provide incredible experiences and lasting memories for young people and their families. We run these programs not because they are required, but because we know how important they are. However, unlike many of our surrounding communities that have millages to support seniors and youth and family programs, these two departments rely on the township's general fund. There are increasing pressures on the township's general fund. That means the money that we spend on these programs aren't going to be able to be used for other essential services. Rising costs and increasing demands on the general fund, along with cuts in state share revenue, we find ourselves in the unenviable position of having to figure out how we maintain these vital services in the face of these pressures. So the senior budget's $1 million net to the general fund. Parks and Rec is net 1.4. So to make sure we can continue to provide great recreation and senior experiences, we have to be careful to spend your money carefully. We have no desire to cut the programs or services, but we have an opportunity to deliver great experiences at a lower cost by merging back office administration. Having these two departments share a director, and as is done in most other towns our size, it also as a best practice, it frees up funds for other things. Cooperating on clerical scheduling saves money and fixes some operational problems we've had. Having one person ensure everything is properly accounted for rather than two different people lowers the cost, it lowers the expenses, it lowers the administrative challenges, it eliminates duplication, and it makes sure that we can protect these programs now and well into the future. We talked about giving people a sense of place and pride in the community through positive experiences. Just as important are quality public spaces where people and families can have those experiences outside of their home. So we've been working on improving and connecting trails. By partnering with the county, we will soon be resurfacing the Spillway Trail and the Bonnier Trail along 16 Mile Road, and the majority of these funds were grant funded. We've recently applied for a grant to make needed improvements to the trail bridge over the Harrington Drain and in George Park. The Clinton River Spillway was installed by the Army Corps of Engineers back in the 1950s, and it alleviated flooding in vast parts of Clinton Township and Mount Clemens. So a number of years ago, the county utilized a $3 million grant to create wildlife habitat improvements. In late '23, they got a grant to study how we can expand people use of the spillway while also protecting wildlife. This, I believe, is one of the largest tract of waterfront properties in the entire county, and we can figure out how to utilize it better. So when that grant came about and we were asked for our input, we put together a team and we said we should be as aggressive on this as possible. So we're now hoping that we can partner with the county and Candace Miller to implement many of these solutions. Important for our community, important for our economy. So another huge project. Is there anybody here from the Inclusive Playground Committee? Martina's here. Stand up, Martina. There she is. So I wanted to do this because there's just this was a passion for so many of us that served on this committee. These are people that spent more than 5 years working to make a vision a reality. Clinton Township is 11% of the county's population. But our research on this project said that even though we're only 11% of the county's population, we are 25% of the families in Macomb County that have someone in the family who has a disability. So it begs the question, what is Clinton Township doing to serve all of our families? So these folks began planning, fundraising, raising awareness, building support, hosting small dollar fundraisers. With the help of our legislators, Denise Menser and particularly State Senator Kleinfeld, we received a $1 million grant from the state, and then we added some of our infrastructure money, and we were able to put this together. We now have one of the largest inclusive playground parks in the entire county and arguably the state of Michigan. So make no mistake, this is not a park just for young people. It's a multi-generational park built with people with disabilities in mind. So it's built for everybody, but it can accommodate everybody. So as folks were cutting the ribbon on this park, we also said, what else are we going to do? And we've incorporated inclusive elements into many of our parks. And because of that huge investment in this, we are now able to leverage many of the dollars from manufacturer of playground equipment grants that are now lowering our costs for some of our other parks, like Prince Drury Park and Joy Park and Neil Reed Park. And this slide gets into the next thing that I think is most important. As folks were wrapping up and cutting the ribbon on the inclusive playground, one of the things that they said was, we put so much time and effort into this, what are we going to do now? And I said, well, I have an idea. So we put the committee together, and we pitched the idea of an independent but closely aligned 501c3 charitable nonprofit organization with a mission of engaging the community and supporting other initiatives that will help make our community a place that people are proud to call home. So many of these members stepped up. We added a few more with special expertise, and they are currently reviewing applications of interested people who want to serve on the board of the Clinton Township Community Foundation. These folks know, and we at the township know, that the effort is just getting started and we need to walk before we run, but we couldn't be more excited to have people willing to contribute their time, their talents, to trying to advance the kind of projects that will help build a better Clinton Township. So I'm going to close here. I'm going to say this. As the new supervisor and with several new board members, we're not always going to agree. Just like everybody out there will be differences of opinion. Democracy is designed to allow for debate and respectful deliberations. As elected representatives, we have an additional responsibility to conduct ourselves with professionalism, to disagree without being disagreeable, and for the most part, we've been successful at that. With little exception, our board is comprised of people who believe and are doing this for the right reasons, and that is to make our community better in the future than what we found it. I also believe that as community leaders, we're not limited to just what we do at the board table. So just to name a few, Clerk Meltzer runs the elections and does a ton of education for it. Treasurer Aiello is putting together his team to make sure that we safeguard our funds, but he also stepped up to say, I'm going to coordinate the blood drive as well. The trustee Bruce Wade took on the responsibility of the 41B District Court because we're one of the funding units and the court is struggling, and I had that position. He is a former police officer, so he decided to step up and take that on as well. And Shannon King is full of ideas and energy, and he chairs the Beautification and Conservation Committee. And we've talked about some of the projects, the plantings, the flower pots, all of the other great programs that he's initiating. So how we come together, another thing, Julie Matuzik, she's the conscience of our board. When she speaks up, everybody listens because she has a knack for making complex issues understandable and making us a more effective board. So for my part, we organized a school supply drive. I appreciate everybody who contributed to that. We did a paper products drive for Turning Point. We helped a young man who wanted to raise 10,000 pounds of food to support the food pantries. We did these through great partnerships. So whether it's 10,000 feet organizing volunteers on the ground level, we all can make a difference in this community. And to the extent that we are positive and we move forward in positive directions and seek to contribute something rather than just criticize, we can do great things together. So for that, thank you.